disappointed that they didn't change the law to give men equal rights to women. And I think it's because the law doesn't trust men to be responsible carers.
Mm-hmm.
We've undergone a lot of cultural changes over the past 30 years. I remember in the 60s when a lady, had a child on her own, it would be taken away from her. And now we've got a complete about-face now. Women can get benefits, they can earn their own money. They don't really need men in the picture anymore, and we don't judge them morally anymore. So, and I think because of women carried babies and they fed them, they're seen as having more emotional rights and more physical rights over that child. So it's just too easy to say, men are not as caring as women. I think it was a lazy political decision not to change the law because it's going to involve a lot of trial and error to get it right. And if they make errors, they're going to expose themselves to a lot of criticism in the press. But really, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. And, it's a shame they can't trust men.
David Emerson, family lawyer and mediator. David, what do you think? Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I think that the vast majority of couples that separate tend to work these things out for themselves. If they can't work them out for themselves, they tend to go and see a mediator or a resolution lawyer. And the vast majority of times, things are negotiated very effectively. And the ones that are negotiated effectively often tend to involve a significant amount of shared caring.
Well, this is what David Norgrove is saying.
Well, he's right. And I think my understanding is that it was a very fine balance in deciding in the report not to go with this because of the research that they found in Australia where forcing shared care didn't actually produce the best results for the children. And the fundamental principle in English and Welsh law is it's the welfare of the child that's the main consideration. It's the child's rights that are most important, and it's not really a question of the mother's rights and the father's rights.
It's almost more than that, though, isn't it? I mean, it's more than just the statutory. There seems to be a lack of an acknowledgement that there are equal roles. That's the obvious inference that people are taking from this, and that's the headline this morning. And these are very bad political headlines.
Well, they are, but it's a relatively small part of the report. It has to be said, and in many ways, that the father's rights are being more drastically affected by other things that the government are doing at the moment, like, for example, taking away legal aid to enable fathers to take disputes to court where they can't get the rights to see their children, where they can't get the right to make a residence application. That is where the real injustice towards fathers is, not in the recommendation that's coming out of this report.
And Chris in West Sussex is right on that particular point, David Emerson, because you're going through it at the moment. And can you afford legal aid is a problem for you, isn't it?
Absolutely, Nicky. Yes, good morning to you all.
Morning.
Morning. My situation is I think, what I would regard as a very difficult and deeply unpleasant one. I separated from my wife towards the end of January. The morning of the day of this separation, I'd made breakfast for my children. We were sitting around very happily, enjoying breakfast. Had an argument with my wife the next day, that evening. The next day, I had to leave early to go to an exhibition for a few days. While I was away, she phoned me saying not to come back until the weekend, to stay away for a few days. And when I went back on the weekend, she said she wanted a divorce. Since then, I've been trying to reconcile with her. That didn't work. Eventually, in April, I decided I had to try and establish contact with my children, and the only way I could do that was by making an application for contact. I employed a solicitor. I started paying for that solicitor. When I realized that my wife had become so entrenched in refusing me to see my children, it was costing me more and more money, and I had to decide, well, no, that's it. I can't afford it any longer. I've got to do this on my own.
How old are the children?
9 and 4. I've a daughter of 9 and a son of 4, Nicky. So they're both quite young. We've had a CAFCAS report, which has now been submitted. I'm actually going to the hearing on the 14th of November. But the system is such that it does favour the mother from the point of view that if she makes allegations that you as the father would say those are false, they're completely untrue, there is a duty on the part of the family courts that they must investigate anyway those allegations, irrespective of whether they are true or not. That delays the whole process, thereby giving the mother more time to further become entrenched in her position, and it also actually means that there's a longer period of time that the children do not have access to their father.
David Emerson,
and vice versa.
David Emerson, listening to those points there, is the system biased against men?
Well, listening to that case, you would certainly think so. I think the great difficulty is going back to this idea that it's the children that need to be protected first. And once serious allegations are made against a child, these do have to be investigated.
Against a child?
Yeah. Or against the
father, I think you mean.
Yeah. And you know, these have to be investigated. The only way you can do that is test them by giving evidence in the court and a judge making a decision. And, you know, the delay that this causes is absolutely unacceptable.
Nicky, can I interject as Matt from Fathers to Justice? The problem is, Nicky, is the system incentivises the use of false allegations. To qualify for legal aid, all a mother needs to do is to tick the fact, has there been any abuse? And that can be financial abuse, emotional abuse, such as shouting, physical abuse, and that incentivises people to make false allegations. And what it's almost like a Salem-like witch hunt, but instead of ducking witches into rivers and seeing if they drown, they're innocent, and if they live, they're guilty, it's the same with fathers. Every obstacle is put in front of you. We're talking about David Cameron, talking about deadbeat fathers and runaway dads should be treated like drink drivers. What about the tens of thousands of good, loving fathers, first-rate fathers treated like second-class parents in this country? And the court system, by putting these obstacles in front of us, makes it incredibly difficult for fathers to get to see their children. And to say there's no bias in the system is incredible. How can you say there's no bias when 97% with 97% of residencies go to mothers?
David Emerson.
Well, I think the vast majority of residencies go to mothers simply because, in practical terms, that's the way it's always been in terms of the day-to-day arrangement.
But that's wrong, surely.
Well, in the vast majority of cases, fathers would make as good a parents as the mothers.
That's absolutely true. Nicky, sorry, it's Chris here again.
Chris, yeah.
My relationship with my wife prior to the separation was one where I would cook, I would do breakfast at the weekends. In fact, when we had the argument, I was ironing some clothes for my daughter for school for the week. I had a very involved relationship with my children. However, the system is such, as the gentleman from Fathers for Justice has just said. Sorry, I didn't catch his name.
Matt.
Matt. Sorry, Matt.
That's all right.
As he quite rightly said, all the mother has to do is tick a box saying either emotional violence, psychological violence, physical violence, whatever it might be, in order to get the legal aid. So immediately the father can only rely on his own funds to actually pay either for a solicitor, which many fathers cannot afford to do, and then what ultimately happens, as in my case, I'm acting as a litigant in person. Yeah. I'm having to speak for myself in court.
Listen,
now, this is fundamentally wrong.
OK, it's 9:51. Thank you so much. Here's Nick Duncalf. More of your calls to come.
Thank you, Nicky. Let's